Today, we have the privilege of meeting Laura Collett, who is an Olympian, an Olympic gold medalist from the UK with strong ties to New Zealand. It was wonderful to meet her earlier in the week when I interviewed her on Zoom. And as I said, I'll play that video for you. But first, I want to just introduce Laura. Laura Collett was born in England to a Kiwi mum. She's been winning pony and horse competitions since she was 13 years old. Now an accomplished equestrian, in 2021 she competed at the Tokyo Olympic Games representing Great Britain, where she won the gold medal in the teams event. That, by the way, was Great Britain's first eventing team gold medal since 1972. Laura has also won three five-star equestrian events: Po in France in 2020, Badminton in 2022, and Le Moulin in 2023 in Germany. In 2022, she was appointed member of the Order of the British Empire, an MBE, in the New Year's Honours for services to equestrianism. Laura has strong ties to New Zealand, with her grandparents and two of her favourite aunties living here. So, without further ado, I'm going to play now the interview with Laura. And
Laura, welcome to Curious Conversations. It's absolutely fantastic to have you here today. We're so lucky to be able to talk to you, especially 2 months out from the Olympics. So this is
exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting to be here.
Are you hoping, of course, to once again represent Great Britain?
Well, absolutely hoping and praying and keeping everything crossed. Yeah, we've got a few more competitions to go before they do the selection. They don't select until quite close to the games. So, yeah, it's all, at the moment, it's fingers and toes crossed and hope for the best.
It is quite late. I was quite surprised that they haven't selected a team.
Yeah, I think with horses, things change and things go wrong and they can pick up injuries and stuff. So they like to leave it till as late as possible and make sure that they're taking their best team. So yeah, at the moment it's a waiting game.
Yeah. So what's the path for you to get to the Olympics from here? You said you've got a couple more events.
Yeah, so we've got a four-star short this week, and then in 3 weeks' time, the last sort of competition, which is in Germany, which is another four-star short, and that will be both those are very important for selection.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask some probably very basic questions about eventing. I think a lot of New Zealanders will know a bit about equestrian and eventing. I think it's fairly big on our Olympic calendar because I think we've probably been reasonably successful over the years. But
Yeah,
some of
very
us,
successful, I would say.
yeah, some of us don't know too much about eventing like me. So can you just tell us a bit about what is equestrian eventing?
So probably the easiest way to describe it is it's like triathlon for horses. So there's three phases. The first phase is the dressage, which sort of after the London Olympics with the dressage, pure dressage riders that people sort of they didn't know about it, described it as the dancing horses. So that's sort of the first phase. The second phase is the cross country, so endurance and stamina, and the horses have to be very brave and jump the solid cross country fences. And then the final day is the show jumping, so that's where they have to be very careful and accurate in their jumping technique, which, having run cross country the day before, is always quite a challenge.
Do they get fairly tired by the end of the 3 days?
They can do, definitely. Obviously, that's a big part of it, is to try and make sure the horses are fit enough that they aren't tired on the final day for the show jumping, because if they are tired, then that's when they might knock poles down, and you incur penalties. So yeah, it's all part of it, is to make sure the horses are really fit and can cope with the questions that we're asking them, and that then can cause a bit of a problem in the dressage, because with a fit event horse, then they might show a bit of tension in the dressage and not be as accurate. So that's why it's quite a challenge to get. It's a fine line between getting things right and wrong.
And I guess you need to find a horse who's all round balanced. Is that right? good at all three rather than strong in one and not so in the other two.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's the ultimate event horses, that they're good in all three phases. It used to be more of a sort of more focus on just the cross country, but now times have changed, people have improved, and now it's very much is that you've got to be up there after the dressage. You got a clean sheet cross country and clean sheet show jumping. So yeah, they really do have to be good at all three phases.
How does Olympic team eventing work? Is it the same? Well, you've got three members of your team, right?
Yeah, so for Tokyo, for the last Olympics, they changed it. It used to be before Tokyo, it was five people on a team and three scores counted. So you had sort of two drop scores. So you could then, you know, with your selection, you could, take a bit of a risk with one horse, and and then play a bit of a game with the running order of them and stuff. But now it's three people on a team and all three scores count. So it means there's an awful lot more pressure on each of the individual riders, because there's no drop score. So you can't afford to make a mistake, otherwise you're going to let the whole team down.
Can you tell us a bit about the course in France? I heard it's in Versailles, is that right?
Yeah, it's in Versailles, but apart from that, I can't really tell you a huge amount because we don't know. It's a whole new track that they're building for the Olympics, and we won't get to see it until we're out there. The course opens on the day before the competition starts, so we won't have an idea of what's in store until we actually get there.
Do you get to obviously practice on the course before the actual event?
Nope, nope. We get to
Really?
walk the course as riders. So we get to walk it several times, but as far as the horses are concerned, they don't get to see anything until the competition day.
So it's a complete surprise for the horse.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's an
Wow.
incredible amount of trust that has to build up over a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, amazing. I mean, that just adds, I guess, extra pressure on the horse, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's where a partnership has to be built, and trust, and you have to have trust in each other.
Is equestrian in the only Olympic sport where men and women compete with each other?
As far as I'm aware, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I also was thinking about equestrian in terms of age, and a lot of sports age really matters, but it doesn't seem to matter quite a lot as much in equestrian. And I learned actually that the oldest woman to ever compete at the Olympics was Lorna Johnstone in equestrian in 1972, and she was 70 years old. I think she was competing for Great Britain.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's yeah,
Right.
a huge age range. Who were the likes of obviously Mark Todd was, I don't know how old he was at his last Olympics, but Andrew Hoy, he's I think been to 7 Olympics. So yeah, there's no real age limit. You can have, 20-year-olds through to 70-year-olds.
70, yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. So is this something you want to do for a long time?
I don't know
Go to
about
more and
that,
more
but yeah,
Olympics?
definitely. So yeah, we take each day as it comes, but yeah, at the moment it's very much you know, everything's aiming towards the Paris Olympics, and then the next lot will be aiming towards the LA Olympics.
True. Okay. Can I talk to you a bit about your connection with New Zealand?
Yeah.
You were born in the UK. Can you just tell us a bit about your strong connection with Aotearoa, New Zealand?
Yeah, like majority of family are kind of from New Zealand. Mum and dad grew up in New Zealand. That's where they met. But then they moved back. I think when Mum was about 20, 21. And but yeah, both sets of grandparents lived out in New Zealand. My aunties, two of them there. So yeah, it's kind of, for me, it kind of feels home from home, really.
And you come out here every few years?
Yeah, I try to. Sadly don't get there as much as I would like to. Because, well, obvious reasons it's not that easy to get there. But yeah, I came out last year. And before that, I think it's actually probably about 8-10 years before that. With COVID and everything, kind of put paid to any kind of closer visits. But yeah, it's a gorgeous country, and I feel very at home there. And yeah, I wish I could visit more often.
It was nice that you were able to bring your medal over to show your grandparents. I know they really appreciated seeing it.
Yeah, it was pretty special to be able to do that.
The medals, are they heavy?
Yeah, very, very heavy. And the Tokyo medals were actually made out of recycled mobile phones. So yeah, everyone thinks it's nice solid gold medal, but it's not. It's mobile phones. But yeah, it's very weighty.
And around the rim, it's got the sport. Is that right?
Yeah, it's engraved with the sport, and yeah, I think it says equestrian eventing,
Yeah.
team gold. So yeah, it's very, very special.
It's amazing. Where do you keep it?
Just on my bedside table, to be honest.
Yeah.
I
Good on
do.
you.
So it's a nice reminder when you're having a bad day to have a little
Yeah.
look, check it's still there, check it's still real.
Yeah. 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 There couldn't be any better reminder to keep going, is there? Really? The gold medal.
No, doesn't get any better than that.
Does the horse get anything special when you win?
Well, he gets a lot of carrots and a lot of polos and a lot of loving, but yeah, no, I don't, he doesn't get he doesn't get his own medal, but yeah, he gets a lot of other things.
Yeah. Now I've
I saw,
also
I,
seen
I saw a
another.
photo of this cool cake that he was made when you got back from Tokyo.
Yeah, it's made out of horse feed into like a cake shape, which was very cool.
Yeah. I'll bet you love that. Can you just tell us a bit about this picture?
So that was but I can't actually remember where I was going to. But oh, to the
It says
Europeans
European
last year. But
Championships.
yeah, so I'd just been given the Dan Carter's book, The Art of Winning. So thought it's pretty relevant to take that with me. Would be a massive Dan Carter fan. Thanks to Nikki. I think probably back when I was about 15 years old, she introduced me to the All Blacks rugby team, and have followed very closely, particularly when Dan Carter was playing, and was lucky enough to meet him actually last year. So yeah, it would be a massive fangirl over Dan Carter.
What are
Nice.
some of the take homes that you have from how he performs in terms of mental preparation for high performance?
I think the biggest thing that I took away from his talks and his books and his anything else that I've watched with him in it, is that pressure is a privilege. That's a real key thing for me, to try to remember. The horse I ride, London 52, he has a high expectations around him, so there's always an awful lot of pressure going into a big competition, and I have to turn it around and think like Dan Carter said, if you're not feeling pressure, then you're not doing well because you're not, on the verge of greatness. And that's so true. And it's easy to forget, but it's a real, one of those very short phrases that stuck in my head, and means an awful lot to me to remember.
Speaking of pressure, can we just talk about the Tokyo Games? Because they were kind of really unusual in the fact that it was held during the pandemic and there were no crowds. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, leading up to it, obviously, it was delayed by a year to start with, and then it was very touch and go as to whether it would actually go ahead. And then when it did go ahead, it was, no crowds, no no supporters, no, it was a very, very surreal experience for so many reasons. And what was really kind of quite amazing was they'd obviously already built the stadium and everything. So we were competing in this huge empty stadium, but it never felt like it was really empty, because there was such a buzz, even just from the people that were there that were competing. Everyone was so relieved to be at an Olympic Games and for it to be going ahead, that the buzz and the atmosphere was insane. And it was only like we were stood on the podium and we sort of looked up and we thought, this is just crazy to think that it feels so special and so amazing, but there's no one here. So part of the reason why I really, really want to go to another Olympics is to witness it with a packed stadium, because I just can't imagine how incredible that would feel, because an empty stadium was pretty special.
So you go, how does it work in terms of pressure from an empty stadium to badminton, where I heard you can have like 250,000 people over the course of the 3 days? What does it add to have all those people watching you?
It's a bit of a strange one, really, because once you're so in the zone that when you're actually doing the competitions, you don't really notice it. Once you're on the horse, you're very much in the zone, and it's only once you've finished or you're walking around pre going cross country and things like that, and you actually appreciate how many people are there, or when you watch it back and you take yourself out of that competition zone, then you realize how many people are there, and it's like a sea of people from start to finish on the cross country. But you're so in the zone, you don't notice any of it, and it's only when you kind of watch it back afterwards and you think, wow, that's insane.
You obviously have to work with the horse to try and ignore, I guess, the crowd and the noise.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the horses are so zoned in as well that they know they've got a job to do, and the really top horses, they are so focused as other riders that they almost get into this little bubble and focus solely on the rider and the job in hand. And that's what makes a good event horse, is that they know they're there to do a job and they don't get distracted by things.
Mm. When did you first start riding?
Gosh, when I was about 2, I think.
2. Wow.
Yeah, did some showing classes when I was younger, and then it was when I was 13 that I decided I wanted to do something a bit more exciting, and had a go at eventing and loved it. Loved the challenge of having to be good at 3 phases, and the buzz of cross country. So that's when I decided that's what I wanted to do for my career.
And the little pony above her right shoulder, that was her first big event pony. That's at Spring.
That's right. That's the pony that made it all happen, really.
Wow.
He took me to my first European Championships, and then when we had to sell him when I was too old to ride ponies, then he set me up for life, really. Ended up one of the horses that I bought after I'd sold him was the horse that took me to my first Badminton 5-star. So yeah, I owe an awful lot to him.
And the other 2 horses in the picture are yours as well?
Yeah, so Raf on the far side, he's the horse that took me to my first Badminton, and then the one in the middle, he won me my first European Championship as a junior.
Wow. Can we talk a little bit about your fall from your horse? You fell off your horse in 2013. Going to just take us through what happened?
I don't know about falling off. I think the horse fell on.
Yeah, so the horse had what we call a rotational fall. So the horse basically did a flip, somersault, and landed on top of me. I was resuscitated 5 times on the way to hospital. Was in an induced coma for a week and broke a few bones, punctured the lung, lacerated liver, and lost the sight in an eye. But apart from that, it was all good.
Wow. That must have been a huge recovery. Taking years.
No, I was back competing 6 weeks and 6 days later.
But
Wow.
probably should have been.
Probably shouldn't have been, but yeah, I was very lucky. I was very, very lucky. It could have been a whole lot worse. I was very lucky with having the most amazing team to help me get back competing and riding as quickly as I could. Yeah, looking back on it now, I definitely probably wasn't 100% right, but it worked. And for me, it was all I ever wanted to do was get back on and carry on and pretend like nothing had happened. I think it was a lot easier for me because I had no memory of that day. Like I had no kind of feeling about it. By the time I came around from the coma, I was under, on so many drugs that I never felt any pain. So I think that was played a huge part in it, was that I had no memory from what happened from that day and no pain. So nothing really, for me, it was like it didn't really happen. I think it was far more traumatic for my poor mum and all my friends that.
She's frozen.
Lost her. She come back there.
Oh,
Right?
she's
So
back.
we just lost you for a second. You said it was far more traumatic for your mum and your friends.
Yeah, they had to live through a week of not knowing if I was going to wake up or not. So I was the
Wow.
lucky one.
Yeah.
And
So-
part of your recovery was with charitable trust with the Injured Jockey Fund. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was very lucky. I was living in Lambourne at the time, and the Injured Jockeys Fund have a rehab centre. So I actually moved in there, lived there for probably about 2 months, 3 months, and did all my rehab there. I had physios, strength and conditioning, the doctor on hand, and yeah, they were the ones that made it possible to get back on and carry on like nothing had happened really.
Amazing.
So, other than your eyes, is there any other long-term impact on your riding?
No, just had to learn how to have depth perception, was a bit dodgy for a while, having lost the sight in one eye, but it's amazing how quickly the body reacts. And sort of slightly more experienced horses for the first couple of months, because they would, they knew enough to judge their own distance. They didn't ride any of the younger horses. I think that was key as well to recovering and training my eyes to see what they were meant to see.
Wow. Yeah. Can we talk a bit about your horses?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your partnership with London 52 or Dan? That is Dan, the stable name.
Dan is the stable name. Yeah. So I've had him, 8 years, I think. Bought him from Germany. He had only show jumped before I got him. So everything that he's done with me for the eventing, and he's a funny character. He's very shy. He's learnt to trust me, and that's why he's kind of so special to me, is because he's not a naturally brave cross country horse, but he's learnt to have full faith in me and trust me when I say we need to go and do this. He sort of says okay, and it's built up over time, and that's what makes it extra special. Is I know he's doing it for me rather than the fact that he just totally absolutely loves cross country. Because he's a bit of a like he'd be a bit of a nervous horse, but he's got better and better with age, and he loves a crowd. And the first time he won a big competition and he went into a prize giving, he was quite scared of the crowds, but after that he then kind of was like he grew in himself and thought maybe actually I am quite good, and that all these people are here for me. So since that day, which was at Buccalo in 2019, it kind of transformed him.
I've always often wondered this, how do event horses get their names? I looked at some of the horses that you've ridden in the past: Noble Springbok, Fernhill Sox, Obo's Cooley, Mr. Base, Moonlight Charmer. How do you name the horses? Or who names them?
The majority are named already before we get them. Mr. Bass was actually the only horse that didn't have a name, and he was named. I named him after a Gossip Girl character, so his stable name was Chuck. So he was Chuck Bass, and Dan, his name was London 52 when we bought him, and we called him Dan because we bought him from the same guy that we bought Chuck from. So we stuck with the Gossip Girl theme and named him after a character from Gossip Girl.
And the London 52 name, is that the sort of stage performance name?
Yeah, that's his competition name.
Competition name, okay. Yeah. How often do you train on Dan or London 52?
6 days a week.
6 days a week. Yeah, he obviously loves it.
Yeah, he does. He loves the challenge. He loves to perform, and he loves the work. So, yeah, you've got to have a horse that enjoys work and enjoys learning. 'Cause there's an awful lot of them to have to learn and take on board, and he's got a very good attitude.
How do they travel? Do they travel well? Obviously on an aeroplane, but they'll have to acclimatise, I guess. Is it stressful for the horse to be on a plane?
No, to be honest, they travel really, really well. It's almost like they're just stood in a stable for a few hours. It's almost easier for them to travel on a plane than it is on a horse lorry because they're not having to balance themselves all the time. But yeah, they obviously when they went to Tokyo, they were on an airplane. But majority of the time, when we go to Europe and things, they just go on the horse lorry on the so like when they go to Paris, they'll just go on the train on the Eurotunnel to get there. So it's be an awful lot easier for them to get to Paris than Tokyo, and they won't have to acclimatise there. We went out a week, or nearly a week before Tokyo to let them acclimatise, but obviously in Paris we would only be there probably day before competition.
Wow. Do they suffer jet lag at all, like at Tokyo? Any kind of issues with
We
that?
gave them 48 hours of just recovery time before we started riding them, just because that's what was kind of they did all the tests and did the test event, and that's what the vet and that should have decided that the horses looked like they were fully recovered after 48 hours. So we allowed them that time to fully recover and get over the journey before we started trying to ride them.
How many years does it take to train a horse to get to Olympic level?
A very long time. It varies. In horse terms, they say that their kind of peak age for high level competition is between sort of 12 and 16. That's when they're really in their prime, but you have some horses that will obviously peak earlier than that, and some that will peak later. So that's kind of a rough guide as to the majority would have their kind of heyday years in between 12 and 16.
So whereabouts is London 52 in that?
He's 15 now, so hopefully he's in his prime.
Yeah, in his prime.
Absolutely.
Ready for Paris. This is what he's been training for.
Yep, hope so.
Yeah. Got a few more questions just about New Zealand's equestrian and eventing. Obviously, we've got a long history of that and a lot of success. And we had Caroline Powell from Lower Hutt just up the road. She was on the news a lot a couple of weeks ago for winning badminton.
Big one.
She an incredible week. Yeah, it was very, very well deserved.
Yep. What are our chances at the Olympics? Do you know much about the New Zealand team?
Yeah, well, obviously, again, they haven't selected yet, but we've always got Tim and Janelle Price, who are so strong, and then Clark Johnson and Caroline Powell, several now coming through that are really starting to peak just in time for Paris. They maybe had a couple of quieter years, sort of rebuilding, younger horses coming through, and it looks like they've timed it really well, and they should be right up there fighting for the medals.
Good.
What's it like being in the Olympic Village?
Well, in Tokyo, we weren't actually in the Olympic Village because of the COVID situation. So the Brits actually had a hotel, which was we were quite gutted about, because obviously that's huge part of the Olympics is being in the village. But actually, it worked out to be amazing, and we were a lot closer to the venue. We had our own shuttle buses, and everything actually worked out a lot nicer to not be in the village. But yeah, if we get to go to another Olympics, then that would be a whole nother experience, being in the village with all those incredible.
I think her internet's worse than ours.
Yeah, just lost her again. Hopefully she'll come back in a second.
Yeah,
There
she's
we are.
back.
We lost you again.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So I guess, yeah, so Paris is going to be potentially a completely different experience to
Yeah.
Tokyo.
Yeah, I think regardless of where it is, or going to be completely different because of, not having the restrictions. There were so many restrictions going to Tokyo with COVID. So, yeah, it would be completely different, and an experience that I hope I get to have.
Yeah, and you'd be able to have some supporters actually come and watch.
Family as well.
Yeah, hopefully if I get there, they'll be able to come, which will be really special.
Laura, we want to wish you all the best for the coming weeks. We hope to see your
Thank
name
you.
on the list for the Great Britain team. And hopefully you'll have a whole bunch of new supporters, seniors in the Wellington
Yeah.
region who'll
Oh,
be
no,
cheering for you.
thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah, so all the best, and we'll watch with eager interest to see how things go for Paris. Thank you so
Thank
much for your
you.
time. I know it's late in the UK, and really appreciate you staying up to talk to us. So thank you very, very much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.